Hey everybody, it's Benny One, and I'm back at you with another movie review, everyone. And we're going to continue this month of October, everybody, with some spooky Halloween movies, everybody. And we watched Hocus Pocus 2, I think it was on Friday or Saturday, I can't remember. We watched it a few days ago. Very excited about getting to watch this sequel, the long-awaited sequel to a classic Disney Halloween movie that we watch every single year. It's one of my wife's favorite movies, let alone a Halloween movie, but movies. And I grew up watching this myself because it came out the original came out in 1993. So almost 30 years later, we are finally getting a sequel to Hocus Pocus, everyone, and that is Hocus Pocus 2, everyone. Of course, it's on Disney Plus. They did not put it in the movie theaters. They're trying to beef up the subscriptions on Disney Plus. I'm sure it was a huge reason why they decided not to put this in movie theaters. So yes, about 30 years later, we finally get a sequel, which I think you guys waited a little bit too long, but we're going to dive into it, everybody. So this is directed by Annie Fletcher, everybody. And of course, Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy, or whatever. I probably mispronounced her last name. They are back as Winifred, Sarah, and Mary, the Sanderson sisters, everybody. That is right. The witches are back. And you know what? They are easily the best part of this movie. Easily the best part. Of course, this movie is nostalgia galore. I feel like they leaned heavily on this being just nostalgia for all of us that grew up watching this movie, and even some parents probably that enjoyed watching it with their kids, because I was 5 years old in 1993 when this came out. So I loved the first Hocus Pocus, and it had magic to it. Like, it had that classic Disney magic that was in the 80s and the 90s. Like, Disney doesn't have that anymore, I would say. It's different the way they make movies now. And this movie, this Hocus Pocus 2, represents how Disney is now today. It doesn't really represent how they were back in the 90s. It just has a different feeling to it. But yeah, this movie is nostalgic for sure. And the Sanderson sisters are great, everyone. They're great. Right away when they get introduced, they break into a song, like, right away when they get brought back. Like, I loved it, man. Bette Midler, fantastic once again as Winnie. Sarah Jessica Parker as Sarah Sanderson. I will say that I feel like she wasn't quite as good as she was in the first Hocus Pocus. I felt like she was my favorite witch and the standout witch in the first Hocus Pocus, always. Because she's just so dumb and funny. And yeah, but then this time around, I would say Mary Sanderson, played by Kathy, I feel like she stole the movie, man. She was the funniest one. Her dialogue and her lines and the wittiness of her and everything. And she rides Roombas, because in the first one, she rides a big-ass, like, Kirby vacuum. This one, her broomstick is 2 Roombas. Like, funny shit. And then Sarah rides a Swiffer mop handle type thing and everything. And then, of course, Winifred, she rides a traditional broom. So they kept in style with the other 2 riding these weird broomsticks that aren't actually broomsticks. That was in the first one. So that's what I mean. It's like nostalgic. The movie is filled with nostalgia. And of course, Doug Jones is back, everybody, as Billy. That's right, the zombie Billy. And when he comes out of his grave again, the dude looks exactly like he did from the first movie back in 1993. It is crazy how they nailed the look of him to make him look just like he did in the 1993 movie. Like, I was like, wow, that is so cool. He talks a lot in this movie, though. That's something that's majorly different in this movie is that right away his mouth is busted open, because in the first one his mouth was sewn shut by Winifred because they had a relationship, which they dive into a lot more in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool to give a little more backstory about explaining how they were in a relationship and what happened and why they hate each other so much now. So I thought that was cool. I like that they explained that and fleshed that out a little more. But it's great seeing him back. He talks a shit ton though. And there is at one point in the movie he does get his mouth sewn back up, which I thought was really cool. So, and then we have our protagonists in this movie, which are played by Whitney Peak as Becca, our main character, and then Belissa Escobardo is Izzy, and then Lila Buckingham plays Cassie, and they are our protagonists. They're friends. They have this sisterhood thing going on where they're into like magic and spells and rocks and stuff. My wife's kind of into that kind of shit, so I understand all that stuff and where they were going with it, but there's a sisterhood theme in this movie, like through and through. Even with the Sanderson sisters, we actually get a little bit of an origin story with the Sanderson sisters when they are kids, when they are young teenagers, and why they got kicked out of Salem and how they found the book, the magic book. Like we get an origin story of why they hate Salem. And there's this storyline with the mayor of Salem, like back when they were kids, and then when they get brought in 2022, the current mayor kind of resembles him a lot, and it's a family member of that mayor. So we get this backstory, which I actually appreciated and I really kind of liked. And the girls, the young actress girls that they cast to play the Sanderson sisters as kids, fantastic. The girl that played Winnie was like spot on as a young Bette Midler version of Winifred Sanderson. Like perfect. It was great. So that was all cool, flushing that shit out. But yeah, we get this sisterhood theme that runs through the movie. And I don't like where they take it at the end of the movie with the Sanderson sisters, because the Sanderson sisters are awesome. They're why we're here. They're why we want to watch Hocus Pocus 2. They're evil witches that have killed children, and they want to kill children. And Winifred wants to become all-powerful and everything, and that's the whole point of her in this movie. And they want to kill this mayor that is a descendant of the original mayor of Salem that they hated. So they're out to do that, and she's out to become the all-powerful witch that has ever been. And they're the reason why we came back for this movie, but I don't like where they end their story in this movie because they're trying to make you feel sympathetic for them, which is something that new Disney movies are doing with villains. They really try and make you feel sympathy and like the villains. And I like the Sanderson sisters, but I don't want to feel sympathetic for them because they're evil and they kill children. And they have killed children. The first movie literally opens up with them killing a little girl. Like literally sucking the life out of her and killing her. I don't need to feel sympathetic about them to enjoy them in a movie. So I didn't really like how they ended their storyline in this movie. And then, of course, our protagonists in this movie, which I didn't really feel attached to them at all. I felt like the protagonists, the original protagonists in the first Hocus Pocus movie, I felt like they were written better, and they were just better written characters that we wanted to cheer for and wanted them to beat the Sanderson sisters. This one, I honestly was like, nah, whatever. These guys, they're just dry characters to me. And I felt it was a weak point of the movie where our new protagonist, I just really didn't care too much about, to tell you the truth. And where it ends, one of them, they get the book, Becca. She all of a sudden she's magical. She's a witch. She has the book, and it's how they defeat the Sanderson sisters, of course. And they walk off, and it's like we got a new iteration of the Sanderson sisters now. So if this does well, I wouldn't be shocked if Disney puts another movie next Halloween or something on Disney Plus again, and we get Hocus Pocus 3. If they do it, I hope to God they would bring these guys, the Sanderson sisters, back again, even if it was for a little bit in the movie. But I could totally see them making a Hocus Pocus 3 with these three new chicks and their sisterhood and do their own thing. I could see it, and I could see it being some, oh my God, Disney Channel garbage. Because I'm gonna say one of the things I noticed about this movie, and not that the first Hocus Pocus wasn't made cheaply, because it was made pretty cheap back in the day, but it had that magic and that charm to it of the way that movies used to be filmed. This one, I just think the glaring like cheapness of it stuck out. Like when they're in the woods, they got that shot of the moon and it's huge and it's just barely above the ground. And it's like the same shot. The moon never moves and you can tell it's just a backdrop. And the movie looks cheap. It does. It looks really cheap. I think it looks cheaper than the first one did. And that one was made back in 1993. And I get it. They're only putting it on Disney Plus, so they weren't going to throw a shit ton of money at this thing. The costumes look great. The Sanderson sisters, Billy, like it all looked great. The movie is filled with nostalgia. If you like the first Hocus Pocus, you're going to enjoy this. The Sanderson sisters are great. Once again, in this movie, it has music in it. They're doing their witch crazy shit. Mary Sanderson steals the freaking show as my favorite Sanderson sister in this movie. Bette Midler was great once again. Sarah Jessica Parker was pretty good. I felt like her character's a little weaker, like I said, but you'll enjoy it. If you enjoyed the first Hocus Pocus, you'll enjoy it. But I just don't think this one was as good as the first Hocus Pocus. I don't. It just doesn't capture that magic of what the first one was. And like I said, it's because I think Disney has changed over the years. And I feel like their biggest issue with their movies nowadays is there's these modern day themes that they are forcing into these movies that they make nowadays. And it's just, I don't like it when movies take modern day themes. I don't care that they're in movies, like I don't, if they're tastefully and done right, but when they force this shit into movies to where it almost doesn't make 100% sense, or really a lot of sense, it just takes away from the movie to me. And it's like, okay, they have an agenda and they have a point to make because of what's going on in the world. All right, you don't have to like shove it down my fucking throat to make me like, I hate, and I see it a lot in movies today, TV shows, everything. It's just too much. So, but yes, Hocus Pocus 2, everybody. I thought it was good, just not quite as good as the first one. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, everybody. It's on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, everybody. So hope you guys enjoyed that review. I thank you for watching, and be catching you on the tube later because I have spoken.